Hi everyone, welcome to a new episode. Kind of crazy, I haven't done a video like this yet, but today I would like to address some of the myths that are surrounding Bitcoin still even 10 years later, maybe bring to light some issues and some aspects to these myths, why they exist and why they're incorrect. So let's get into it. Now, before I get into today's video, I wanted to let you all know that this Wednesday, the 24th, I will have Ben from BTC Sessions on as a guest. So if you have any questions you'd like me to ask him, or if there's any topics you'd like to hear us discuss, feel free to leave those suggestions down in the comments of this video. Okay, so the first myth I would like to address and bust is the assumption that a small number of Bitcoin wallets hold the majority of the Bitcoin supply. Now, although this myth isn't necessarily false, the story behind it will probably change how you feel about this fact. Now, at first glance, this statement probably prompts you to visualize one or a handful of extremely wealthy individuals who own all of the Bitcoin and therefore have the ability to sell them and cause all kinds of fear and panic selling. But before we let that anxiety creep in, let's exercise what's always being encouraged in this space and do your own research. Now, if you were to do a simple web search of the top richest Bitcoin wallets, you'll easily find out that the top 5 richest Bitcoin wallets belong to centralized exchanges. Exchanges like Binance, Bitfinex, Huobi, and Bitstamp. Now, although it is true that these wallets are controlled by exchanges, the rights to all of those Bitcoins belong to hundreds of thousands of other individuals. Now, if this is still unsettling news for you, it should be, because this means that these centralized exchanges hold incredible amounts of Bitcoin. And even despite what had happened with the Mt. Gox exchange a few years back, people still trust these centralized exchanges to store any amount of their crypto investments. Do yourself a favor and DYOR, do your own research on things called decentralized exchanges, focusing particularly on those which do not require you to deposit your coins onto their platform. These are the real decentralized exchanges, the ones that will be your saving grace in the future. So check out Blocknet, Bisq, and Komodo's barter DEX. Those should serve as good examples of what a quality DEX looks like. The next myth I would like to address is the fact that many people think you have to buy one whole Bitcoin. Now, this one is actually quite common, and from a layperson's point of view, it's pretty understandable. If you think about it in terms of dollars, there's dollars and there's cents, with cents the smallest amount of money represented in this scenario. Now, it's not too often that the mainstream media speaks of Bitcoin in terms of Satoshis, which is indeed a denomination of Bitcoin. Actually, a Bitcoin can be divisible by up to 8 decimal places. This means the smallest amount of Bitcoin that you can own is 0.000000001 Bitcoin. So for those of you who may have been intimidated by the prices of Bitcoin today, or for those of you who can't quite figure out why your friends or family may have been hesitant to invest in Bitcoin, this might be why. All right, the third myth I would like to address, and it's very important I think that people understand this, is this myth that Bitcoin is private or anonymous. Now, this particular rumor about Bitcoin has most likely been perpetuated by the assumption that Bitcoin is only used by criminals. In fact, there exists a thing called chain analysis, or more recently, Crystal, which is brought to not us, but to law enforcement and financial institutions by the company Bitfury. These tools are used to track and analyze the history of a Bitcoin. So if you somehow found yourself in possession of a Bitcoin which at some point was in the wallet of, let's say, a sanctioned country, or it was at one point in the possession of a hacker and a governmental entity has been tracking it and has found it in your possession, I don't think it's that much of a stretch to assume that you'd be dealing with some bigger problems than maybe the drop in price recently. Now think about it like this. Imagine if the FBI was tracking some dollar bills, and it turns out that one of those bills was found in your wallet, and you are now found guilty of possession of laundered money or accessory to whatever the crime, even though you had nothing to do with it. It seems like a far-fetched scenario because we know our paper money to have fungibility. Now, this is a term that is definitely worth getting familiar with, along with how important this is to Bitcoin. This is the argument for the need of privacy functionality within Bitcoin, not specifically for criminals, but for the good of the entire network and for those who use the coins. Other cryptocurrencies like Monero, Zcash, Dash, and Pivx, and others have tools already available, but if you're looking for privacy protocols that are being developed for Bitcoin, check out Liquid by Blockstream. The next myth, and the last one I will be covering today, is this myth that Bitcoin has been hacked. Nope, Bitcoin has never been hacked. Okay, well, there was at one time many years ago when a 51% attack accidentally happened. It didn't result in any theft or damage, and those who were involved promised to never let it happen again. But in regards to a malicious attack on the actual network, no, there has never been a successful attack and manipulation of the Bitcoin network. Now, there are two things to consider here. First, there is Bitcoin, the actual coin, the thing with that price that many people obsess about day in and day out. And then there is the Bitcoin network. Now, this is the blockchain that is comprised of and monitored by thousands of nodes and miners who work to manage the blocks of the Bitcoin blockchain and ensure that things like double spending can't happen. The more nodes and miners that exist and the more spread apart they are, the stronger the network is and the more difficult it is for anyone, government included, to infiltrate it and control it. Sure, lots of centralized exchanges have been hacked, and plenty of people have had their Bitcoin stolen. Most of these thefts occur due to lax security practices. Storing your Bitcoin on an exchange like Coinbase, Binance, Bittrex, Kraken, Poloniex, just to name a few, just because it's easy is a great indicator that you also use easy passwords. Now, this is something hackers are well aware of and why so many exchanges are their targets. Centralized exchanges can be thought of as a second layer to the Bitcoin network. Just because they use Bitcoin does not mean that they automatically gain all of the benefits of its decentralization if they themselves are a centralized entity that uses centralized methods for storing your precious Bitcoin. That's all I have for you today on this episode. If you enjoyed this, if you learned something, leave a like, leave a comment down below. Catch me on Wednesday where I will have BTC Benny from Twitter. He also has the YouTube channel BTC Sessions. Ben, you also might recognize him from last week's crypto Q&A live show that I do on CryptoCast Network. He was a guest. So this time on Crypto Tips, I will have Ben on my show. It'll be a pretty interesting conversation. And as always, Thursdays, live, 3 p.m. Eastern, I will be on the CryptoCast Network. You can find that on YouTube, CryptoCast Network. I will have some live guests, address some of the questions from you, the audience. I will be tweeting out a link for that live video in my Twitter. You can find me Blockchain Chick. Have a good one.